concerned. The next morning, Kent contacted me and was actually doing worse.
By Saturday, I was still not doing very well, and the doctors came back and said, Nancy, we don't really think you have Ebola, but we want to do the test anyway, just to set everybody's mind at ease.
It seemed almost impossible with how cautious both of them were. We were really trying to convince ourselves that this was some other form of illness, maybe dengue fever or some other type of illness that would be mosquito-borne or could have infected him and caused similar symptoms.
And still ahead, an experience that becomes all too real for American caregivers working here.
It was a fire straight from the pit of hell.
They weren't sure I would even make it to the U.S.
And then, is there a cure? Ebola inside the deadly outbreak. Here in Liberia, in the grips of the deadly Ebola epidemic,
it's not fair to us.
Even the heroes are scared. Doctors and medical volunteers are vulnerable. In some outbreaks, they account for 1/4 of all Ebola deaths.
We closed off our program in April of this year.
It just wasn't safe.
We didn't think that we had the necessary precautions to do it safely.
American doctor James Sirleaf is the son of Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. He left his practice in Georgia to help with the crisis, only to find panic and chaos.
The NGO community has mostly left.
Yeah.
We had to pull our physicians. We can't risk. These people are not Ebola-trained doctors. It's just not safe to have them here.
While others pulled out, many of those who stayed were missionaries. And by early August, Americans Dr. Kent Brantley and Nancy Wrightball had serious symptoms.
How do you tell the love of your life that they've contracted a deadly disease and that there's, you know, a chance, a great chance that she might not survive?
It fell to Nancy's husband David to deliver the diagnosis.
He said, I want to tell you that Kent, Dr. Brantley, his Ebola test has come back and it's positive. It was hard to hear that. And then David said, and Nancy, you have Ebola also.
The odds are not good. Among Liberians, more than half of those with the disease are dying. There is one slim hope, a new drug called ZMapp still being tested on monkeys. Dr. Brantley is the first human patient. Their charities hire a plane to transport them home over 4,000 miles in a specialized medical isolation pod, sealed to protect everyone on board.
When I got on the flight in Liberia, I wondered if I would ever see David again. We felt like it was pretty critical. I don't remember much of the flight at all. Pretty dehydrated, really pretty sick. They weren't sure I would even make it to the U.S.
They are taken to Emory University in Atlanta, a different medical universe. One of 4 high-tech centers in the country designed to handle the most deadly and contagious diseases.
People who say that you should not have been allowed back in the country, it's just too dangerous. What do you say to that?
I would say that in coming back into the country, we understand the concern for public health. Having said that, there have been established procedures and protocols that we took very great care in observing.
Most important, Nancy is isolated from everyone, even her own husband.
It's a really lonely place to be.
We put our hands on the glass and, you know, I told her again, she's the most beautiful woman I know.
It is her family and faith that got her through.
I think one of the scripture, it's a psalm that so many people know, that the Lord is my shepherd, and yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil.
Some Americans say that you had no business being over there. It's too risky.
We went to serve, but when you go to serve, you count the cost, but you lay it down. You lay down those fears, you lay down what you think might happen.
Then, finally, the news that both the Wright Balls and Kent Brantley have been praying for. They are virus-free.
Today is a miraculous day. I'm thrilled to be alive, to be well, and to be reunited with my family.
But still ahead, what awaits American troops as they head for the hot zone? Panic in the streets. And can they help Ebola's youngest victims? It looks like a war zone. The West Point slum in Monrovia, Liberia. Population over 50,000. By now, the Ebola virus, on the move since December, has killed over 2,000 people in West Africa. And now 3,000 American troops are preparing to deploy there.
So this is an epidemic that is not just a threat to regional security, it's a potential threat to global security. If these countries break down, if their economies break down, if people panic.
It's already happened. In Monrovia, Liberia, the epicenter of the crisis, West Point became a flashpoint. The panic started in mid-August when the government set up an Ebola holding center there. They quickly filled up with people like Finda. The other adults in her family are dead, so she has 6 kids with her, and her nephew Sa is sick.
Why are you laying down?
Her young sister, another nephew, and her own 2 boys aren't ill, but they all wait with Sa, amid other patients who may have Ebola.
I will not touch him. You will not what? I will not touch him. Touch him? I will not hold him. Why? Because it's safe. I get it when I give it in my hand. It's so self-full.
Her stay here is short-lived. Residents are furious that patients with Ebola are in the neighborhood, so they ransack the center, looting infected medical supplies. 2 days later, the government puts the entire community under quarantine. But the rioting and looting continue. Containing a frightened populace isn't easy. In West Point, the quarantine is doomed from the beginning.
There where the string of crosses, that's where people cannot go past. That's
so
the
that's
line.
the quarantine line.
Yes.
And the idea is that the germs will stay on that side of the line.
I guess so. Yeah.
That's just absurd.
Yeah.
But when people are scared, they do crazy things. I've never seen a quarantine area like this. They haven't used quarantines like this where you shut off whole parts of cities since the Dark Ages. Behind the barriers, there's people who can't come and go. They've been in this compound for 7 days? 8 days. Why?
They said they're doing a quarantine.
It's like you're in prison.
In prison. No movement, nothing. This is our home, and this is so one problem. But they have kept us here, keeping us on a hostage.
For some, no food, little water, and no power.
Very bad, as I said. Very bad. You know, you can't live in a dark place just like you're an animal.
Meanwhile, Finda and her children are living on the streets, afraid her house is infected with Ebola. 3 more of her kids are now sick, and they're hungry. But she's also afraid to go to the hospital. So many have died there.
They were taken to the hospital today?
I don't know. Did not do nothing to me. They not take me in.
They will take you from here. How many children?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Like it or not, like so many others, she is forced to go. But it's too late. Little Sa dies in the hospital. But these photos have surfaced. Even in death, he is known as the little boy on the bucket. When Finda sees those pictures, she breaks down.
I think